Hey everyone, thank you so much for coming to watch this video. We're obviously on Saturday, and as usual we do a live stream on Saturday. So it's going to be a quick one. We're just going to go really over the Bitcoin miners and Bitcoin this past week. How did the miners compare to Bitcoin this past week? And then we'll get into the Q&A. So it's going to be a really quick and easy one. I just got done doing a 6-hour long Twitter stream, or Twitter Spaces, with the Bitcoin stock mining guy. That was a lot of fun there. Hopefully you guys were able to take part in that as well. But let's get into it here. So at first, we always have to go through this. This is not obviously financial advice for entertainment only. Please do your own research. I'm investing in the following coins and companies for full disclosure. And if you enjoy this type of content, hit the like button, subscribe, helps me out tremendously. And if there's any corrections to be made, those will be posted to Discord, to YouTube, and Twitter as well. Okay, so it looks like everything's working well on the stream here. So let's get into what we have here on the miners really quick. And then we'll get into the Q&A. But here on this chart, we always look at the miners as far as how far they've come up from the 52-week lows. So that's obviously our kind of like gray bars here. And then the red bars are from how far away the miners are from their 52-week highs right now. And you can see here, Cleanspark is clearly the winner here so far. It's up 720% from their 52-week lows. Next, we got TeraWolf. TeraWolf is up nicely here as well. It's up 251% right now. You got Mawson up 234% as well. Marathon up 203%. Bitfarms 180%. Cypher 162%. BitDeer 158, and you got Bitcoin up 157% right now. And then everybody else below that has obviously underperformed Bitcoin here in the last 52 weeks. So we got quite a few companies that have underperformed, obviously. Some should have been under that already. Mawson should have been not up here, should have been below here. Sphere, obviously, good one to be up there. But some of these guys that are here, like Riot, potentially Hive, and Hut 8. Hut 8 obviously has issues, but Iris as well. Digital as well should have been on the opposite side of Bitcoin here. Okay, that's just kind of my viewpoint on it. And you can see the miners here, how far away they are from the 52-week high. So Cleanspark's pretty close to 16% being from its 52-week high. Bitcoin's only 13% away. It's obviously had a pretty bad week this past week, but miners had a pretty good week. And then we got the likes of Mawson. They're 67% away. You got Sphere 3D at 66%. You got Hut 63% roughly also. And then you got Argo at 63 as well. So there's quite a few miners that are way away from their 52-week highs right now on the way we're looking at it. Going down here, we'll just take a look at the 1 week, 4 week, 8 week, and 12 week charts here, how the miners have performed so far. And you can see here that Bitcoin's down 8% of the week, and I track it Friday to Friday, as always. And we can see here who else is down quite a bit here. BitDeer is down 11% on the week so far. CORZ was down just 1%. Riot was down 2%. Hive 1%. Sphere down 5%. Argo down 1%. Then we have a bunch of miners that actually did pretty well this week. You had TeraWolf up the most, 38%. Then you got Cypher up 31%. Then you have Cleanspark and Hut 8 up 12% both in the week, so that's good there. Then we have Iris Energy being up 10%, Marathon up 8%, along with Bit Digital, DMG being up 7%, and then a couple of miners being up 2%, 1% in here on the 1 week. If you look at the 4 week, things change a little bit here on that one. We can see here that Bitcoin's up 2% from 4 weeks ago. And then the miners that have done better are Cypher. It's up 52% in the last 4 weeks. So it's done really well here ever since they reported their financial results. That one has been doing really well. Then you got TeraWolf as well, 21% as well, being up on the last 4 weeks. Then you got Cleanspark up 19%. And we got Hut 8 and Core being up 8% and BitDeer up 10%. Right? So those have all done better than Bitcoin. And then all of these guys have done worse than Bitcoin here. The biggest loser here has been Sphere 3D from 4 weeks ago, followed by possibly Riot, down 23%, and Argo down 22%. Looking at the 8 weeks here, things change a bit. We can see here that Bitcoin from that point on is up 48%. So the companies that have done better than it are only two. You got Cypher up 68% from 8 weeks ago. You got Cleanspark up 144%. And you got TeraWolf pretty close to what Bitcoin's performance has been, 46%, and everybody else has underperformed Bitcoin here. Biggest losers, Mawson again, 41% down, Sphere 3D down 39%. And you got Argo down 29%, and Digihost as well. And then we had a couple that were up in the single teens, I guess you could say. Iris up 18%, and Marathon up 17% from there as well. And looking at the 12 weeks really quick, we can see that Bitcoin at that point is up 44%. Cleanspark still outperforming it, 77%. So that's the only one that's really outperformed it here pretty much on the time scales that we're looking at. Who else? Other than that, everybody else was down. Cypher's only up 12%, and then TeraWolf is up 3%. There was a still positive at least, right? But then everybody else here is in the negative. Mawson again down 55%, Sphere down 58%, Argo down 56%. Those are the ones that we would normally see being down because of whatever reason, whether it's capital constraints, poor operations, things like that. That's kind of where we would expect them to be anyways. And then who else do we have here? Hut 8 down 37%, Digihost down 40%, and you guys can see the other ones as well. So there's only been a couple miners that have done really well over the last 12 weeks. And I think it's just still, we're early. We're only, 25 days away from possibly the halving event happening. So that's definitely having an impact on the miners right now. But yeah, we'll see where things go on it. And then we can see here on the charts or on the tables that we had a pretty good week this past week. Prior week was bad. Then the prior week to that was kind of good. Then we had a bad week again. Then we had a good week, kind of bad week, a good week. So it's kind of getting flipped around a little bit here right now. It's kind of indecisive as far as where it wants to go. But prior to that, we had a couple weeks here that we were in the red. And we've seen that before as well. We saw a lot of red here in October through September and even into July here. You can see we had a bunch of red weeks here as things were kind of trying to figure out where things wanted to go, right? We had the news on the spot Bitcoin ETFs potentially being approved. So we had some hope here, hopium in these weeks up here. Whereas down here, we had a nice rally in the miners basically from January through the middle of July or something like that. We had a really nice rally in the miners there. Some miners lagged, some miners didn't, but overall it was pretty good. And then we had a kind of a pullback. Then we had a nice rally again here into December, and then we've obviously had a pullback and then kind of a little bit choppy waters here in the past couple weeks. Okay, so that's it on that one. And as always, my little sales pitch here towards the end of the video, and we'll get into the Q&A here next, as all of these spreadsheets are available to my Patreon members. The link is in the description of the video as always. That's still $8 a month, and you might be able to get a couple spots that are in the $5 and $4 tiers as well if those are open. But you guys get all this plus a bunch of data points that I have, over 100,000 data points probably by now, if not more. But that is my only sales pitch for you guys. Okay, so let's get into the actual Q&A here, and we'll see what you guys have as far as questions. So let me pull that up. Let me go to my screen here so I can see what's going on here. And we'll get through this. And then, let's see here. Kevin, thank you so much for the super chat. Appreciate it very much. Let's see here. Okay, question here. When do you think the miners will bounce back? I think it might still be a while. I think it might be not until the halving event sometime, or after the halving event actually. Right now we're just going to be a little choppy. I think we're going to be going up and down, up and down. Miners look like they want to kind of run a little bit. We've seen that with Bitcoin coming down in price while they were actually running up. So we may have that rotation happening here from MicroStrategy into the miners as well. So we may have a short-term rally a little bit in the Bitcoin miners, but then we're 25 days away from the halving event. And it's anybody's guess right now as far as where we might go. Let's see, what else do we have here? Let's see here. Your fundamental analysis is phenomenal. Do you look at technicals at all? No. I don't. I shouldn't say I don't look at it at all. I do look at it sometimes, but I don't look at it on like daily time frames, or I don't look at it daily. I don't look at it hourly or anything like that. I look at companies that are going to be growing well, have good operations. That's where I really look at. That's kind of where I spend most of my time, is in the data, right? I think the data has pointed me so far in the right direction with Cleanspark, Bitfarms, and IREN as well. And I kind of plan on doing it that way. Let's see here. Okay. Thanks for sharing. This is amazing. Consider the high volatility of Cleanspark, Bitfarm, IREN. Why don't you short-term swing trade to capture some short-term gains? Okay, good question. And I've tried it in the past with other stocks. I've tried it with Bitcoin also, and I came out on the wrong end of the trades. So I learned my lesson. For me, it's better to be in the market than trying to time the market. So time in the market versus trying to time the market, for me at least. And I kind of like it that way because that way it's not as stressful. It's kind of like, these are my conviction plays that I want to get into, and I just dollar cost average into them, right? People are fearful and they're selling. That's when I'm greedy. I'm buying as much as I can at that point. And that has kind of worked out for me. So we'll see if that continues to go well for me going forward. Let's see. Thoughts on Cleanspark's Q2 earnings will look like. Appreciate all you do. Thank you so much. I think Cleanspark earnings will be really good for Q2, right? They're up. Let me go to my spreadsheet here really quick. But the revenue is up from Q1, which is good to see. Their hash rate is up as well, which is good to see. So I'm looking at potentially them being at, here, I'll pull this up for you guys. For Cleanspark, it looks like current quarter estimated numbers are about 112 million right now, right? That's based on January, February data that we have right now, and then the March data is an estimate right now. So definitely a huge gain for them here in revenue, and I think that's going to translate over to a positive EPS quarter for them as well. So it's going to be a good quarter for them, but not only for them, but probably for a lot of the miners as well. Okay, let's go back here. Okay, 2020 last cycle, the miners bull run started only on September. Will it be the same this year? We don't know. I don't think so it will be, because we've already seen a different cycle this time around, right? We have the spot Bitcoin ETFs. We have the Bitcoin getting to a new all-time high before the halving event, which has never happened. So a lot of different things are happening this time around, which makes me think that the miners might actually start running faster than they did in the previous cycles. But just kind of my thinking on it right now. And let's see, do we have any other questions from you guys? Trying to see. Okay, here we go. Question: what made you invest in IREN over Cypher? Is it just the fact that Bitfury hold a large percentage? Do you know if they're planning to sell in batches over the next couple of years? Yeah, so that was basically it. When I was looking into investing, one of the things was obviously Bitfury holding a lot of shares of Cypher. Right, that was a concern for me. They sold 10 million shares in, what was it, September, October of last year, I believe. That obviously put a lot of pressure on the stock and it basically freaked people out a little bit. So that was a concern there. Now, Bitfury did distribute a lot of those shares. I think they still own roughly like 35, 40% or something like that, which is much less than the 75% that they did own, but they still own quite a bit. But I'm less concerned about it right now. The other thing was IREN's growth projections are higher right now for 2024 than Cypher's. Cypher does have the option to buy more miners, but it all depends if they can build out in time. But it's really the same thing for IREN. But IREN has just projected higher growth rate this year. And that's kind of the reason why I got into it. Let's see here. Question: why Bitfarms and IREN still lagging other miners? ATM. I think that's the main reason. Both of them have a pretty sizable ATM, and they're just growing. Every time we've seen that with other miners, whenever they have an ATM, they're pulling on it hard, like we've seen the miners do right now, is the stocks kind of are flat, right? To a point until they actually report that, hey, we are fully funded. For Bitfarms would be like 21 exahash. If they report that, then I think the stock will take off. We've seen that with other miners as well. IREN, same thing. If they come out and say that they are fully funded to 20 exahash, I think the stock was going to take off, because at that point, investors feel that they won't get diluted even further, right? So that's what I think is right now holding things back. Will you let us know when you start trimming your positions? Yeah, I'll let you guys know. When I do a video, I'll let you guys know that I sold something, just like I recently just bought Bitfarms shares. I'll let you guys know that I bought Bitfarms. So yeah, we'll definitely continue to do that for you guys. But that's not going to be for a while. Unless Bitcoin starts rallying up to 100, 125,000, maybe 150 in the next couple months. So it might be faster than I'm actually thinking. My thought was probably at the end of 2024 or early 2025 is when I'm going to start selling, but things could be different this time around. Let's see. Next question: how high Bitfarms can grow by the end of the year? As far as growth, their growth rate, their projected growth is supposed to be 21 exahash by the end of the year. I believe they've placed orders to get, I'd have to look. Hold on, let me double check before I tell you guys something that's wrong. Currently what I have for them is with the miners. Yep, they already purchased all the miners to get to 21 exahash. So here's a sheet. 21 exahash is, because I only report or record anytime a miner actually purchases things, ASICs, and I do have them getting to 21 exahash here by the end of the year here, based on what they reported. Okay, so that's kind of where we're at with it right now. Going back up here. Let's see. Question: do you think that this cycle will see a percentage much higher versus the last cycle? Example, let's say last cycle 5x, this cycle much higher. For the miners, I think that the percentage gains on Bitcoin might be lower from last halving cycle, but the dollar value will be higher, right? As Bitcoin price goes up much higher, the percentage that you want it to go up decreases, or it usually decreases, but the dollar value goes way up higher than that, okay? For the miners, I still think that the miners will do, I don't know if they're going to do like they did last time. Marathon was up like 7,000%. from the bottom to the top. Don't know if we're going to get that, but I think we're going to get where the miners will reach new all-time highs potentially in their stock prices. Let's see. Okay. There's an interesting discussion between the mining companies whether HPC offers better margins than Bitcoin mining. Have you formed an opinion yet? Waiting on BTB earnings report with contract. Yeah. I actually talked to, oh gosh, what's his name? The CEO of BitDigital today on the Twitter Spaces. We were talking about that, right? Where I asked him basically what are the profit margins on the AI stuff and things like that, and he said that he can't report that yet, but we will get the information from the Q1 results, which is I think what everybody's waiting for with BitDigital on that. But I also asked him where would Bitcoin price need to be to have a similar profit margin to the AI side of things, and he said about 100,000 roughly, right? He said roughly. Don't quote me on that. But that's kind of what we're seeing right now. I think there's still more. How can I put this? I think there's still more upside to Bitcoin mining than there is with AI stuff. But the AI stuff is pretty much almost like a guarantee, right? They have a 3-year contract, especially BitDigital, where they get paid every month regardless of what happens with Bitcoin. So I think it's a more steady stream of revenue, whereas Bitcoin is more volatile because you have the price going up, price going down. So there's times where you make a heck ton of money from Bitcoin mining, and then there's other times where you're just breaking even possibly or actually losing money at it. So, but if Bitcoin goes up to 100,000, beyond that, it's more profitable than AI stuff is, right? But we only have short term of that, maybe 12 months or something like that, where that all makes sense. See, Kevin, thank you again so much for the super chat. When people argue against non-HODL miners, what is your opinion? Yeah, that's a tough one. I like obviously miners that HODL, especially in opportune times. Right now is an opportune time before the halving event because we know Bitcoin price is going to go up in value. Now, there is something to say for miners that don't want to HODL because they want to use the money that they sold the Bitcoin for, the dollars, to grow out their infrastructure, buy miners, whatever it might be. So there is something to say for that as well, where they're not diluting shareholders as much. But obviously, I don't like miners that HODL just to HODL, and they HODL through the bull market, they HODL through the bear market. They don't do anything. They just keep stacking on top of it and diluting miners on that side. So I'm not okay with that, I guess you could say. But I'm okay with miners that are growing, using the Bitcoin that they're generating, and using that for expansion as well. But I like miners a little bit more if they do HODL, if that makes sense. Let's see. Why do you think it's the case that TeraWulf has such large all-time high compared to other miners despite not performing nearly as well in their some form of hype around the stock? Okay. It's not an all-time high, right? When we looked at the chart here just previously, if you got a chance to look at it, we can see that TeraWulf is still away from its, let me pull that chart up for you guys on this one here. So here's TeraWulf. TeraWulf was up 251% for the 52 weeks from its 52-week low. It's still 39% away from its high here. So it's not reaching a new all-time high yet. But it's getting close, right? It's getting much closer to where Cleanspark is and all those. But I think the reason that it's starting to run up a little bit is the fear of them having the debt not being paid for. That's kind of being squashed a little bit with the latest Q4 numbers, and we'll probably get some more data on them from Q1 as well. That shows a little bit better balance sheet as well. So there's a little bit less fear, I think, on the debt, right? They still have about 100 million left, but they're supposed to be paying down that even more from the Q1 revenue side of things. So they'll help out, and then possibly they can restructure that, which will be good. Let's see here. Question, what do you see Cleanspark mining per month post-halving? Well, right now they're going to be, what are they at, 25 Bitcoin a day roughly. So, I mean, that's going to be half of that. So if you're looking at 12 times 30, you're looking at, what, 300 some odd Bitcoin potentially? It's going to be cut in half, obviously, from where they are right now. Let's see. Do you follow the Empower conference? There is one next week. I do not. But I'll take a look at it, see what's going on there. Let's see. How high Bitfarm and Hut 8 stock price can go by the end of the year? Bitfarms, I'm optimistically thinking maybe $15, if not higher, depending if they can build out their infrastructure, get the miners installed, and get to 21 exahash by the end of the year. Also, with Bitcoin going up to maybe 100,000 plus, right? That should help them. And then if they report that they're done diluting to get to 21 exahash, I think that's a good one there. Hut 8 is a different story. They are, wow, how do I put this gently? Hut 8 is kind of like transitioning over into a managed services company, more so than they are into a Bitcoin mining company. And I think, I mean, you can take a look at the current market cap of Hut 8, right? And look at how much they actually hodl. It's like they're away maybe, what, a couple hundred, maybe 200,000, not 200,000, 200 million away from where their market cap is. Let me pull this up for you guys so you guys can take a look at it here as well. Here's Hut 8 numbers, and we can see here that their BTC value right now is 611 million, and their market cap is 772 million, right? They have more value in the HODL than they have in anything else, really, here in the market cap. And I think they're being discounted because of, well, the fear from investors is they're not going to be really growing into their own self-mining, but they're transitioning into this kind of managed services and hosting type of business, which we know historically has been less profitable than self-mining Bitcoin, right? But we'll see. Maybe they change that around. But right now we're also seeing that they've been using up a lot of their Bitcoin HODL to pay, I guess, expenses, maybe debt as well. Their HODL has been decreasing here. So that's obviously a concern there a little bit. It hasn't been decreasing much, but it has been decreasing here. So that's the concern there, that they're going to be pulling on that HODL potentially more, especially, you know, they got some older miners. They shut down a facility as well. And we can see here in the numbers, where's it at? There. I mean, you can see Hut 8 before the merger had like 93 terahash miners, 89, 77 terahash miners, 84. So some of the older generation miners that really need to be unplugged at a certain point, which they have already done. Let's see here. See, can you break down all the risk with these miners? Let's say you're willing to hold for 1 to 3 years. Is there any risk at all of the price not coming back? I wouldn't hold it for 1 to 3 years. I mean, right now, if you're getting into the miners, I think for the next potentially, we're looking potentially here based on historical cycles. I would say maybe at most 12 to 16 months or something like that. And then you want to be out of them. Basically, when Bitcoin peaks, Bitcoin miners usually front run Bitcoin price a little bit. You want to be out or reducing your positions to that point. So if you get to a peak and you continue to sell down into it, I think that's going to be the best way to do it, unless we have a completely different cycle this time around because it's by Bitcoin ETF, where the miners and everything else stays up higher for longer potentially, with Bitcoin potentially going up much higher as well, right? So that's something that we have to keep an eye on as well. But miners are not something you want to hold on to for 3 years. You usually want to get into the miners like a year before the halving event, and you want to be out of the miners about a year or so after the halving event as well. So at most like 2 years. So you can buy at a pretty low price at that point. Let's see it. Do you think the miners will most likely rally after the halving? Yeah, that's typically what we've seen in the past halving cycles. So that's when they usually rally along with Bitcoin. But I think we're still way under from where we probably will be in the next 12 months or so. Let's see here. What factors can we use to predict the price of Bitcoin, if any? None, really. I mean, you can kind of see, sometimes they say network hash rate, with that increasing, that drives the Bitcoin price up as well. But sometimes we have a disconnect with that as well. And then I would just say it's really institution side of things right now. Right now, what's driving Bitcoin price is the spot Bitcoin ETFs. And then we'll start slowly getting into where we have the retails getting into it back in. And then you get the FOMO, everything else, and that's what really drives the Bitcoin price up at that point. Let's see here. If you were to invest in Bitcoin ETF, which ETF would you prefer? So, well, I don't know. Look for the one with the lowest fees, obviously. I don't know who has those, but I think the biggest winner has been so far BlackRock, right? I have regular Bitcoin. I don't need to get into Bitcoin ETFs. So I wouldn't really know. Let's see. Thoughts on BitDigital? Seems like it should be much higher. What am I missing here? I think it should be much higher, I think, as well. But I think the investors are wanting to see how profitable is actually the AI side of the business. And then their growth in regular Bitcoin mining hasn't been that great. They're saying they're going to double to 6 exahash by the end of the year, which is great, but not fantastic, right? They're at 2.7 exahash, I think, right now. And then I think that's kind of what's kind of dragging the stock a little bit here. Maybe if we saw a little bit more growth in the Bitcoin, and then once we see the actual numbers for them for AI side of things, which we'll get after the Q1 results are out. Let's see here. Is Riot a great investment? Potentially, if they can fix their issues with their operations, right? Their new facility, Corsicana, should provide them with more uptime, at least in that facility there. But it's going to be hard to see. Not hard to see. It's going to be. We need to see the proof in the pudding, I guess you could say, right? Can they actually operate for longer than 20 some odd days, or whatever it is? I mean, they curtail quite a bit in Rockdale facility. So if they can operate closer to like 25 to 28 days a month out of the other facility, the new one, that I think will be a good sign there that things have definitely improved. Are you publishing CEO interview? No, that was on Twitter Spaces that we had him on. So that was with Bitcoin mining site guy as well, and a bunch of other people as well. So that's on there, and that actually wasn't recorded this time around. So that's not available. If you missed it, I'm sorry on that one. Let's see here. Thank you so much for the super chat. Okay. We're thinking about adding either IREN, Cypher, or Riot. Which one seems like it's most undervalued with most upside? That's a tough question. IREN and Cypher are pretty close to each other as far as being undervalued right now. Riot is questionable because of their operations. So if they can fix those, they might run up really high because their growth rate is much higher than those guys. But yeah, it's a tough question to look into it. That's not an easy question to do, or not an easy question to answer, actually. Is Cleanspark breakout going to continue, or is it going to retest 15? I think we might test 15 again. You never know. With depending where Bitcoin goes, Bitcoin continues to go down, we could retest, which would be obviously, in my opinion, a buying opportunity. But that's up to you, right? Not financial advice. What is your option on Greenidge? Greenidge, I used to cover Greenidge last year until they stopped providing operational updates. So I've stopped covering them. So I don't really know what's going on with them now. I know they were in trouble back then. I'm guessing that they're still pretty in trouble right now, I think, based on where the stock is right now. So I don't have much to say on Greenidge right now. Let's see. IREN optimistic estimates as far as where they should be. They should be, let me take a look at my numbers here really quick on IREN. Right now, I think they should be, about 3x from where they are right now. 3 to 4x right now. And that's mainly, I think, because one, they don't hodl anything, and two, they don't also report quarterly results, which I think is also kind of hurting them a little bit there. So if they can do those things, maybe hodl a little bit and report quarterly, I think the stock would do much better. See, how high can Hut 8 price go? That I don't know. We need to actually see their financial results for like a full quarter of the combined companies right now, just to see how they're doing, how much cash they're bleeding, all that stuff, and then what are their targets for their own self-mining hash rate growth. So right now it's tough. Right now the data that I have on them is pretty much all pre-merger, so it's tough to say right now. Let's say you made a pessimistic prediction for Bitfarms. What are the potential downsides or risks to the price of the stock? Downsides are obviously if they don't install the hash rate that they're planning on installing, if they have bottlenecks with infrastructure and things like that, or if in the countries that they are operating in, like Argentina and Paraguay, if for whatever reason there's some political turmoil, right? I mean, that's one of the kind of risks to it all. See. Do you think IREN is fully funded to 20 exahash by the end of the year after the, well, yeah, I spoke about this in yesterday's video, I think it was. I think they only need like 360 million maybe to get to fully funded to 20 exahash. That would be for the miners and infrastructure. So I don't think they're going to have to pull the whole thing with the 500 million. They already pulled 270 some million of it already, right? So they really only need like another 60 or 80 million or something like that to possibly complete that, based on my estimates at least. You say a year before to enter the mining companies. So what would you suggest be for someone looking to invest now? Dollar cost averaging as best as you can. Pick some of the best miners that have pretty good growth here going forward. Those are the ones I would probably look into. Let's see. Do you think a multiple of 4x is fair multiple to give miners to Bitcoin in this bull cycle? Typically, what we see is if Bitcoin goes 2x, we're usually looking at miners going in 3 to 6x. So I think 4x is definitely fair. Kevin, again, thank you so much for the super chat here. Let's see, gotta run here. Love all you do. Great Sunday. Have a great Sunday. And let's make some money this week. Yeah, we all appreciate it. You have a great weekend too. What else do we have here? What other miners are investing in AI? Like BitDigital, we got, I think Cypher's getting into it. TerraWolf, Iris Energy. There's a couple other ones, I think. I'm drawing a blank here. You got Hut 8 potentially in that side of things as well with possibly their old GPUs that they had. Also Hive, I think. There was somebody else that was getting into it as well. I'm drawing a blank though. There's quite a few that were in that space. Let's see. Question, excuse me, from one of your last videos, looks like CORZ is a sleeper that's no one is looking at and may have a good surprise run this time. That is true. I think it's basically being undervalued right now because of them getting out of Chapter 11 bankruptcy. I think investors want to see maybe a quarter or two of their financial data to see how they are doing after the Chapter 11 bankruptcy. At that point, I think maybe the stock would run unless there's bad things in there that investors don't like. Do you consider the stock to flow model for Bitcoin to get your estimate for Bitcoin estimated future price? Partially, yes. But I also look at historical price movements on Bitcoin, percentage gains and things like that from like the bottom to the top, and then also from the halving event to the top, things like that. And I still have Bitcoin getting to possibly like 180,000 this bull run on the very conservative side of things, possibly to like 300,000. But that's, I think, even lower than where the stock to flow model is on that. How low do you see the miners dropping until the halving, and of the miners that will still exist, how quickly will they recover after the halving? So miners dropping before the halving event, I'm not sure how much we're going to drop much lower, depending on Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin continues to drop, then they're going to drop. As far as what miners will exist, it all depends on Bitcoin price. If Bitcoin price stays at these levels right now, most of these miners that are even operating older equipment will still be profitable. So we'll have to see on that one, and then what was the other part of it? And how quickly will they recover after the halving? Depends on Bitcoin price going up. So if Bitcoin's at 60-some thousand right now, Bitcoin basically needs to double to 130,000 at that point for the miners to quickly recover to that. And that can take, a couple months. If we get a good rally in Bitcoin, it could take, 3 to 6 months maybe, depending. So they can recover relatively quickly if that happens. Let's see. What do you think of buying long-term calls on miner stocks? Too crazy or not? A couple of people that I listen to and value their input on options is they've stopped buying options a while back because they just see it's not the, what do they say? I'm drawing a blank. The spread is not that great on it, I guess you could say, right? So it doesn't really make sense for them. So they're long and a lot of the Bitcoin miners. Do you think Bitcoin's price can start rising once grayscale outflows ends? Yes. I think that's been kind of the down pressure that we've seen here in Bitcoin recently. And obviously we have the halving event coming up as well. So, but eventually it should do much better. If Riot gets to its goal of, I believe, 30 exahash this year, where do you see them price-wise? Depends on their operations again, right? They may have 30 exahash installed, but if they're operating at 50% of that, that's not really great. They're only operating 15 exahash at that point. So we really need to see improvement in the operation side of things for them. But if they can get to 30 exahash and still let's just say that they get to 30 exahash and operate on average at like 22 exahash or something like that because of the current facility that they have at Rockdale. At that point, I think they should be much higher from where they are, at least 3 to 4x or something like that, if not more. What did you learn from the BitDigital CEO interview? Basically that, one, he sees obviously the stock not getting the love that he feels it should, right? Because I think the investors are not pricing in the AI side of things, which I agree, because right now they're kind of like the canary in the coal mine. They're the first ones at bat at this. So investors want to see what is the profit margins on that business, right? And then where is the kind of like break even on Bitcoin on it, where the profit margins would be the same. So I think that has to do a lot with it. And then if investors see that the price of Bitcoin needs to be like at 80 or 90,000 for it to be the same kind of profit margins as the AI side of things, well, then they'll have to evaluate, right? Which one's better? Is it better to have a miner install more hash rate than get into the AI side of things? Could they have spent that money on getting newer miners and things like that, right? That's things that have to be taken into account. How many miners do you think will fold or be taken over after the halving? If Bitcoin price stays where it's at right now, not many, if any, at that point. I think we would need Bitcoin to be like around 40, 45,000 for a lot of the miners that are subpar operating to be taken out at that point, and it would have to be there for like a month or two, maybe 3 months, where the price is relatively low, right, on Bitcoin at least. Do you think the miners would have a big dip after halving? Not necessarily. Last cycle, we saw the miners going down into the halving a year prior, and they were kind of flat afterwards. They dipped a little bit, but it wasn't a huge dip or anything like that. This time around, Bitcoin's actually higher than what it was before in the halving cycles. It's reached a new all-time before the halving event. Things are different this time. If Bitcoin stays around where it's at right now, we may not see that big dip. Let's see here. Okay, say TeraWulf pays off debt in a timely manner. How high could it potentially go? For TeraWulf at that point, let's take a look here. Let me look it up just to see where they are right now and where they possibly should be at. They should be at least 2x to 3x from where they are right now if they didn't have the debt. They have a lot of shares outstanding, which is, what is it, like 200 some odd million shares? Yeah, 238 million shares outstanding. So that's why you might see the stock there. But if they continue to grow and do everything else right, they will do obviously much better. And if they can pay down the debt, they don't even need to pay down the debt. They can just restructure it for another 3 to 5 years or something like that and be in a much better financial place, especially after the halving event. And I think that would help out. Question. I currently hold Cleanspark, Bitfarms, IREN, thinking of adding one more. Which would you add? I'm thinking Cypher. Cypher is definitely good. TeraWulf might be also good there if they can restructure the debt as well. Then you got Core. Core is a little bit more tricky. That's more of a high risk, high reward potential there because they're just out of Chapter 11 bankruptcy. So there's a lot of unknowns there. And I think once investors see the Q1 results and possibly Q2 results for Core, maybe at that point the stock will rip. But right now it's just a little risky on that one. Let's see. I'm thinking about cashing out of Hut 8, invest that money in Cleanspark now. What would you advise? I can't give you advice, but I will tell you that Hut 8 obviously has been operating very, very badly here in the last 2 years, you could say. Cleanspark, on the other hand, has done a lot better job, right? They're still growing to 30 exahash. They're at 16 exahash now, so that's another basically double there in growth. Just in the soft mining, their HODL stack has been growing also, whereas Hut 8, I mean, they're actually decreasing their hash rate because they're taking off older miners and facilities that aren't, I guess you could say, profitable right now. So there's the two sides of things. How you do and which way you go, that's your decision there. It doesn't have to be Cleanspark. It could be some of the other miners that are a little bit more maybe undervalued right now, but they're not getting the love. Could they get the love later on? Sure. Is it possible to tell if the individual miners will have a good Q1 or not? Yeah, I mean, we can see it in the numbers right now. We're seeing a lot of miners reaching new revenue per quarters, right? Cleanspark has had a great one. Some of the other ones may be getting close. But they all should be breaking their revenue streams here in the last at least 4 to 6 quarters or so. So things are looking much better for them. I would imagine a lot of them being positive on EPS. Let's see here. What do you think about Hive? Hive I've had since 2017, actually, 2017, 2018. I actually sold them just in, when was it, December, I think I sold them, because I just didn't see the growth there, and the stock wasn't performing that well. So I sold it. I still made a couple $1,000 profit on it. Not that great. It would have been tens of thousands profit had I sold it in 2021 when the stock peaked or close to the peak. But I was thinking Bitcoin was going to go much higher. Obviously it didn't, so I held on even longer. Lesson learned. Let's see. Argo is fine, potentially, depending where Bitcoin price is at. Mara price prediction for summer of 2025. That's a tough one, depending where they grow, and depending where Bitcoin price goes, right? But people are saying that they could be $100, $150, if not more, on that. But they have to fix their issues as well with the operation side of things, which I think they have. In the last 2 days, we've seen much better production from them. So hopefully that's the case. What are all the miners you invested in? So Cleanspark's my number 1, Bitfarms my number 2, and IREN is my number 3 right now. Let's see, I already covered that question. I have Bitfarms at 3.2. Are they still diluting? I think they are still a little bit diluting. They obviously have pretty good growth plans. They're at 6.5, 6.7 exahash right now, getting to 21 exahash by the end of the year. That's basically like a 3x growth. So they do have a lot of growth. They're going to need the capital, but I think once they do that, I think it's all accretive to investors, basically. Okay, I think I'm catching up to your guys' questions here. Let's see, which miners are most at risk of going bankrupt? So right now, with Bitcoin price being where it's at, there's a lot less risk for the miners to go bankrupt. Had Bitcoin gone down or stayed down around the 40s or the 50s, then we would have seen maybe half a dozen of the miners or so that I cover, at least probably 4 to 6 that would be in trouble going bankrupt potentially. One of them was Argo, Mawson, Sphere 3D, and then we got Stronghold as well in there potentially, and a couple of the other smaller ones as well that might have been in trouble at that point. Okay. All right, I think I caught up to all your guys' questions here. Let me see, I think I have one more coming up here. Okay, Bitcoin price prediction for summer of 2025. I think Bitcoin will peak before summer of 2025. I think it might actually peak in like the first quarter of 2025, if not before then. And price target somewhere between 180,000 and 300,000 potentially, but we'll see. Okay, again, too far out. If you guys are looking at 2025, you're looking at a year out. If Soltero gets the debt behind them, what's your price target prediction? It all depends where Bitcoin, excuse me, it all depends where Bitcoin price is at, along with where their hash rate is growing, where the network hash rate is at, and just what are their productions like, right? What is the revenue? It's tough to predict that far out. Let me see. Are you planning on holding onto the miners you mentioned until 1 year after the halving event? That is the original plan. But we've seen a different cycle this time around, right? We've seen Bitcoin get to a new all-time high before the halving event. We may have a much faster, shorter cycle with Bitcoin. I'm saying may, because nobody really knows. So we'll have to keep an eye on it. We'll keep an eye on some of the charts on Bitcoin, right? The stock to flow, the power multiple chart as well on that one, and see where things are going and see if we're getting a little bit too overheated on it. So at that point, I mean, if let's say some of the miners like Cleanspark goes up to $100 or something like that, I'm going to be selling at that point. I don't care where Bitcoin's going. I'm going to be in a really nice place, so I don't think that has anything really to do with it. So we'll have to keep an eye on it. Let's see. Before 420 BTC halving, can we expect a significant drop in BTC? Not really. We may see a little bit of a drop, but I wouldn't see a significant. I mean, in the past year, we've seen drops in like 20%. Just recently, in the last, what was the last week? I think we were down 17% on Bitcoin. So I think that's pretty much what we're going to see here. Let's see. For those miners that can stay solvent after the halving, are they likely to sell all their BTC just before the halving? Probably not. And there's not a lot of companies that hodl a lot, right? The big hodlers are Marathon, Riot, Hut 8, Cleanspark, and then you get a couple of them that have like 1,000 to less than 1,000 BTC at that point. And I don't know if they're going to sell unless they actually have to. That's kind of the way I would do it, at least. Why do you think a company like MicroStrategy doesn't just buy a mining company and get Bitcoin at cost? It's expensive, right? I mean, you're spending a lot of money, and then plus, do you really want to invest that much capital into it? And then it takes time to get built out. It takes time to get miners. You need good people in there as well to run those operations. For MicroStrategy, it's just easier for them to buy Bitcoin, and that's worked for them pretty well. If you were given 10K to start a mining portfolio, how would you allocate those? Please be specific. With 10,000, I would probably get a mixed bag of them all. I'd get probably like a little bit of Marathon, a little bit of Riot, a little bit of Cleanspark, a little bit of Bitfarms, maybe some IREN, some Cypher as well into it, because I just don't know which ones are going to outperform from this point going forward, right? Some of the smaller ones like Bitfarms, IREN, Cypher might outperform in percentage gains compared to like Marathon, Riot, Cleanspark potentially, right? That's an option there. So I would diversify as best I could. Let's see. What do I think of Riot stock? I think they're a really good company, but their operations have been abysmal here the last year or so. So they need to fix that. They are growing nicely, and I think once they get those things fixed with the operations and growth going good, I think they'll do much better going forward. But they definitely have good growth plans going forward. So are you saying you won't sell for any other reason besides a price rise that you're happy with for the miners you're holding? Pretty much, yeah. Unless we get a swan event where things start going crazy, we get World War III or whatnot. At that point, I might have to sell. But other than that, right now the plan is to kind of my price targets. I know where my price targets are, and I'll probably start selling at those price targets, and I'll continue to do that on the way up and possibly on the way down as well. Right? I just don't know where the top is going to be, so I'm going to dollar cost average out just the same as I dollar cost average in. Let's see here. Okay, I think we got a couple more. What is the targets on Cypher? Let me take a look at Cypher here really quick. I think right now they're still undervalued from where they should be. They're getting much closer to it. With the recent run-up they've had, I have in between $5.32 to $7.99 for right now, right? But as they continue to grow and things, Bitcoin goes up in value, they should be valued much higher as well. So if you think Bitcoin's going to go up 2x, 3x, they could be up another basically 6 to 10x from here. But that all depends. What is your prediction for Annie and IREN post having? Annie, they're going to survive, just barely. If Bitcoin stays at this price, they're going to barely survive. But I could see them folding possibly afterwards, especially as the network hash goes up, maybe unless Bitcoin really does rally. But they're one of the ones that are on my chopping block because they're just not going to be mining that much. And they still have pretty high costs as far as general administrative costs and then hosting costs as well. Cleanspark at 200. Boy, I don't know. My target was $70 for Cleanspark this bull run, right? But we were having definitely a different bull run than we had before, so I upped my price to maybe $100 at that most. But it all depends where Bitcoin goes. If Bitcoin goes up 150,000, 200, 300,000, whatever it might be, at that point, $200 might be possible, right? We just don't know. What's Wolf target? I think you said $14. Let me see. Wolf right now. Oop, passed it up. TerraWolf. My current price targets on them are they're at $2.46. My targets are $4.29 to $6.44 as of right now, right where they should be, and that is based on them having 238 million shares outstanding. That would give them basically a 1 billion market cap at that point, 1 to 1.5 billion market cap. That's where I think they should be properly valued right now, at least. But if they continue to grow and grow well and execute well, pay down the debt, they could definitely get much higher valuation from there. Okay. Let's see here. Are you frustrated with IREN? It's getting replaced by Riot, Hive, or I'm not sure I understand your question here. I'm not frustrated with IREN. The only reason I'm frustrated a little bit here is they don't HODL anything, right? But I'm okay with it. But I wish they would do that. And how is it getting replaced by Riot, Hive, or BTB? Not sure on that one. Will IREN crash due to ATM? No, they're almost done pulling the ATM based on my numbers here. They may need another 60 to 80 million or maybe 90 million, something like that, to build out to 20 exahash. I think that's going to be happening here soon, I hope. What's your view on CORZ Scientific once they get out of the current debt? Do you believe they will start hoarding Bitcoin? And then also, what is your view on hosting side with NVIDIA AI? Yeah, that probably won't happen until they get above what is like $6 in the stock price. They can use the warrants at that point to pay down some of the debt or all of the debt, I think. So we still have a ways to go on that. Will they start hoarding Bitcoins? I don't think they're going to start hoarding Bitcoins anytime soon. They want to pay down the debt and fund operations and growth, things like that. And the AI side of things, we'll have to see how profitable that is for them, right? They said they have a, $100 million contract for, we don't know exactly how long. Multi-year, I think they said multi-year contract for 100 million on it. What are the profit margins on it like? So we'll need to see. Let's see. Trying to find a question here real quick. Okay. Why did you suggest your spread, your allocation of capital if you have 10 and all miners go up relative to Bitcoin price? Wouldn't it be better to just go in on one? Well, you don't know which miner is going to outperform the others, right? So let's say you pick the one that only goes 5x, while some of the other miners go up 6, 7, 8, 10x or something like that. So that's the tough part, right? Some of the miners have run up here already, like Cleanspark, Marathon. Riot's a little bit behind from where it should be, I think, right now. But then you got other miners that are just more behind from where the others have run up. So I think there might be some more upside potential in those smaller miners potentially. And you just don't know. Will the capital go to the smaller miners that are doing well and growing, or will it go to the bigger miners that have grown already quite a bit but still have good growth ahead? Going here, your thoughts on Hut 8 going to ER next week? It's not going to be pretty, I don't think, for Q4 for them. That's my opinion right now. That's because they were also merging with US Bitcoin at that time. There might be some costs in there as well that are due to that. So I don't think it's going to be pretty. IREN diluting and reporting every 6 months. Are you going to sell soon? No, I'm looking to buy more IREN actually. The belief there is once IREN gets majority of the revenue from the United States, above 50%, I think they will be forced to report quarterly, which would be good. So that's kind of the way I'm looking at it. I'm looking to possibly buy some more this week. Let's see here. Next question. I am invested in any and down 30%. What should I do? It's very stressful. I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure. Look, I was down 60, 80% on Cleanspark, Bitfarms, right? I was buying in early 2022 where they were at $9 and $5. They came all the way down to like $1 and below $1 for Bitfarms. So it is very stressful. Any's not the best miner out there. I'll just say that. They are definitely on the bottom tier as far as ones that are the way they're performing. And then also when it comes to having an event, they're like on my list of ones that might not survive. For that reason, you may want to, lick your wounds a little bit, move on to something else potentially. But also if Bitcoin goes up in value, it kind of lifts up all boats as well. So it's tough to say. It's your call on that one as far as what you want to do. Let's see. What's your opinion of Swan becoming a player in the Bitcoin mining space? I think it's exciting. They're one of the ones that has done really well here in the last, basically, was it 8 9 months or something like that? They came out of stealth mode just recently, about a month and a half, 2 months ago. And they went from basically nothing to being at, I think the last reported was 7 exahash right now. So a huge accomplishment by those guys. So they've obviously done their due diligence. They've gotten the right things and done the right things to grow, especially going into having an event. So once they also go public, I think later on this year, that will help them go forward. So it'll be interesting to see. I think they're going to be definitely one of the ones that's looking to be a contender for the top 5 spot as far as Bitcoin size or Bitcoin miner size. Let's see. Will the world have enough energy if everyone tries to start mining if BTC reaches the 1 million prediction? You also have to take into consideration the network hash rate at that point, right? It's not that it's going to be 1 million and you're getting a million per coin. It's going to be, you're still going to be getting the maybe 3.125 if Bitcoin goes to a million this cycle. If it doesn't go this cycle, if it's next cycle, you're going to be even less Bitcoin rewards. So you're going to be at that point, what's that going to be? 1.5 something, right? 1.5 Bitcoins per block reward. And if Bitcoin's at a million at that point and the network hash rate is up above one, what's that going to be? If it's like probably north of 1,000 exahash, right? That all plays into it. So I don't think it's not going to be all that profitable as everybody thinks it's going to be, because those are other contributing factors to it as well. And plus, electricity cost is a big player into this as well. Question: what do you think about TeraWulf not holding as a strategy? I see why they're not holding, because they're trying to pay down their debt. But I would like miners to hold in times. There's times to hold Bitcoin and there's times to not hold Bitcoin. We've seen it in the past. Best time to start holding is obviously before the halving event, right? Bitcoin usually starts going up in that time frame. That's the time to do it. But with them being in debt, I can see why. And then also, I could see some miners just say that they want to sell everything so they can fund operations, growth, and things like that, which is okay. It's not the best strategy, I think. That's kind of where I differ from some of them, but I'm okay with it. Should I worry about dollar cost averaging if I'm planning on straight up holding and waiting for it to go up? What's the benefit of this? Well, if you're dollar cost averaging in, you can possibly, I'm not saying it will happen, but possibly when the miners do go down in price, you can buy more of the shares at possibly the same cost, right? So if you buy 500 shares at $1, right, you're basically spending $500 at that point. But if you buy 1,000 shares at 50 cents, that's much better, right? You're getting more upside when it does go up, I guess you could say. Let's see. One more question. What is your take on AVAX? Can it 3x? Not sure. I don't follow altcoins. At least not anymore. I used to. Let's see. I mean, yeah, so I'm worried if I dollar cost average, I could potentially miss these prices as I missed TeraWulf when I had them on my radar. That's a very good point, right? You just don't know. It all depends on where things go. So that's something you got to weigh on your own, I guess. You know, how do you want to get into it? But yeah, it's definitely tough trying to pick the bottom. It's tough trying to pick the top. Okay, I think I cut up to everybody here, so we'll cut it short here. I think we're already going on pretty much for how long have we been going for? Don't know. Probably about an hour or so. We started at an hour. Started at 7:30. We're at 8:23 already. So we'll call it there. Thank you so much for everyone coming in here. Greatly appreciate it. And we still have a ways to go here before the halving event, which is now 25 days away. If you look at the chart, where's it at? Right there, 25 days. That's tough to do. 25 days away. Anything's possible right now. Bitcoin could skyrocket. Bitcoin could fall a little bit more. We're in a different cycle this time around. So be patient. Like I said, buy the companies that are doing well, growing well, have a healthy balance sheet. The other miners that are smaller, microcap, they have the potential to possibly go up higher in percentage-wise, but they're also more risky. So be careful out there. Do your due diligence, and then obviously don't just follow what I say. Don't follow what anybody else says. You got to do your own due diligence on these miners because you're investing your hard money in this. So I never want to see people lose money in anything that they do. Okay, that's it. I hope you guys have a great weekend. Thank you so much again for coming in to watch this video. If you enjoyed it, hit the like button, subscribe. It helps me out tremendously. And we'll get back into the swing of things on Monday. Okay, so I'll see you then.